Leveling Up in Africa. Crafting winning strategies for game development and marketing.
So let me introduce our moderator, Rubén, Guillem, the head of commercial partnerships at Entourage Sport and Entertainment, Sergey Sheykhetov, that's a difficult name for me, General Director of Afrikaresearch, Nikita Gorshkov, the CEO of Mancala Gaming, and Junaid Moerat, the Director of MoeratMedia. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. How's it going so far? Good? Nice. So I heard most of the panel has started with soccer. I come from soccer as well. When we talk about winning strategies, we always thought pass the ball to the number 10 or pass the ball to Messi. So with this, you bet everyone. So here I think we have 3 number 10. So 3 experts in this field. So let's start. Let's roll the ball. So at the end, Africa is massive continent, right? And each country has their own audiences, right? So how do you do how do you differ on different audiences in Africa, please?
Sorry. So yeah, good afternoon. I think some people might differ with you on Messi and they might go with Ronaldo, but that's another debate. So look, yeah, I think just to touch on the first part of what you said, and I think they touched on it earlier, that yes, we've got one continent in Africa, but every single region and every country is different. It has obviously its own nuances. It's got different strategies that you have to implement to get into those regions. And I think a big mistake that a lot of us make is that we think it's one strategy to get into Africa. You've got to know every region. So I'm from South Africa, and just to add on that, it felt very weird getting into my car and driving to a conference 30 minutes away from where I live, where usually we're catching a flight. So it's very good to be in Africa. It's very great to be part of this. But yeah, so to get back to that, we have to understand the market. We have to understand that South Africa is completely different to Angola, which is completely different to Nigeria, and which is completely different to Uganda. And to touch once again on what they said earlier is that you've got to identify a market that you want to get into. You've got to understand that market, and you've got to be very specific on what you want to do in that market and how you want to get into it. As a blanket approach, in my view, will not work if you just take that approach for the entire Africa. So you've got to be very specific.
No, totally agree. I see Nikita was affirming with his head. What do you think about? You think that you need one strategy to target Africa, or you need to tailor the content? You need to tailor or need to make more adapted to different based on different audiences, different countries? What do you think?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I think there are 2 points to make here. I come from game development, a lot of things that are IT and tech related. Now, when it comes to Africa, I believe there is one thing that it does have in common when it comes to that is the simplicity and the ease of use of the technology, ensuring that basically the games are of less volume and don't have 30, 40 megabytes. However, that's the tech side of things. When you come to player preference, I believe that is a completely different story. I mean, Africa, as you mentioned as well, it's a huge continent. Every country has different preferences. Every country has different players. And that's where it becomes more difficult to analyze, understand, and adapt in order to provide the best possible experience to the end user.
No, absolutely agree. Sergey, from your side, which would be the biggest challenges that you can face as for game developers in order to target the content, to create different strategies? in order to implement in different countries here in Africa?
Thank you very much, Rubén. Well, there are several important things. They have to do with this question of differences and commonalities across the continent as well. Yeah, because of course the continent is very diverse and each country is very different, but still in sub-Saharan Africa there are several important things that cut across the entire continent. First of all, the gamblers, they are generally poor people comparing to the gamblers in Europe, in the United States, and elsewhere in the world. So they are poor. The average deposit $2-3 maximum, right? Second point, they are gambling from their mobile phones, which means that they are online, but they are not online all the time. And this is again a big difference between the African consumers and gamblers in the developed world. So we have a lot of clients. I'm coming from the market research perspective, and our clients, they are trying to enter the continent from Europe, from the US. They want to do everything online. Social networks, Google search, internet influencers, that's perfectly fine. That's very important. But we always need to keep in mind that a lot of activities of our target audience are still happening offline. And we need to target them offline as well, not just online.
Yeah. I mean, you touched the point of online and the mobile devices and the penetration. We see that in most of the countries now, the internet penetration, the internet borders are increasing. Most of the people now are using the mobile devices in order to place bets, to game, and so on. So Nikita, what's your opinion about this? What is the strategy to take in consideration?
Well, actually, Sergey, I completely agree with you. The aspect of having a mobile device doesn't guarantee mobile connectivity. And that part specifically is where it becomes a bit more difficult for providers and operators coming from, let's say, the Western world, the European world here, where they realize, yes, so everybody has a mobile phone, but there are a lot of regions that just don't have the connection. 5G is not everywhere. A lot of places still use 3G. And that is where you are going to be coming to a realization that how do you provide your product and your content on a mobile device that isn't connected to the internet or is not always connected to the internet. So there are multiple ways that we've seen this done through telecommunication, through SMS, various technologies that are using less amount of data. For example, WebP, which is currently a very big potential to change your graphics from PNG and JPEG, and then lowering the size of the game while still maintaining the high quality of the graphics. But that still doesn't answer the issue. What does a person do who is somewhere that just there's no mobile data? How is he going to play?
No, exactly. And for you, Junaid, what do you think about the connectivity? You are based here in South Africa. What do you think about the penetration?
Look, so in my view, obviously there's different aspects of looking at it. So one, quality of traffic we got to take into consideration. If it's someone that doesn't have data, or if there's connectivity issues from your mobile phone. So we touched on low-value players within Africa, but then we need to look at obviously high-value players. So I look at it from an acquisition perspective. And yes, we've got some of the data-free operators that are out there. They might have partnerships with telcos that allow them, data-free access to the platform. But what is the value of the player that an operator gets from that as opposed to a non-data-free player? So when it comes to, I would say, marketing or acquisition, you got to look at, is it worth the spend to go data-free? Are you going to get the 50 cents, $1 depositor on a data-free, or someone without data? or do you focus your acquisition efforts on, yes, maybe a smaller minority of players within Africa, but definitely a higher value? So I think there's two aspects to look at from a strategy point of view and who your target is.
Sergey?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me comment on Junaid's point. I think it's a very valid point when it comes to South Africa. That's very true because you have high-value customers here. But in most of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, well, of course they exist, but there are very few of them. And as I already said, the average deposit is $2-3, and the retention rate is very low. People make like 2-3 deposits, and then they leave, and then they move to somewhere else. In terms of the acquisition, of course, again, the online channels are extremely, extremely important, and they are growing. That's the future, no doubts about it. But if you are entering these markets like Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, if you are entering them now, there is no chance you can avoid the offline acquisition channels, and there are plenty of them. So you work with celebrities, you organize road shows. Road show is something which is almost extinct in the developed world, but still very popular, Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, right? So you do a lot of TV advertising still. You do a lot of radio, and radio you do not in English or French, you do it in vernacular languages. So there are lots of nuances that you don't see in Europe and the United States, but you can find in Africa. Then it comes to acquisition, retention, and your marketing strategies.
Mm-hmm. No, you touched some of the some innovative monetization models that are successful or has proven being successful here in Africa. So Nikita, what do you think are those most innovative or which are going to be the new trends here for game developers in Africa?
Well, for providers in general, I believe the main concentration should be, as it was before, reducing the size of the content, making sure that you're using statics instead of anything that's graphical. Further, it's WebP for sure. Thanks to Google, we have this new technology to replace PNG and JPEGs. I think that's going to be a big step up forward, at least to improve the quality of the games. While before you would just use compression, with compression results bad quality. So you're never in a place to be able to provide the top end of your product that you're, say, are able to do in Southeast Asia, in Europe, and in the US. Here you have to take that risk, and you will for sure give a reduced quality of the same product that you're giving out elsewhere. So moving forward, this is one way to do it. As Sergey mentioned, I think the issue still persists with the lack of mobile connectivity, and that is going to stay for a while until everything is back to standard. So there are no easy solutions here. Everything has to be taken separately, and you have to adapt. As a provider, you have to adapt to every situation in every country differently.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Junaid, you mentioned about some strategies earlier as well, about the connectivity and so on. And what do you think in terms of, based on your experience here, which are the let's say, the most successful marketing strategies to follow?
Well, I suppose it's twofold, and if I look at South Africa specific, it comes back to the point that South Africa is much different to, other countries within Africa, and it comes back to the strategy being completely different. So I think it touches on a sort of community-based, from game developer to operator to affiliates and to players, because that is the ecosystem that is ultimately utilizing the product. And more importantly, it's the end user's experience. So from an operator perspective, as one, data becomes important. How profitable is the game? What is the usage in sort of percentage-wise compared to other games? How localized is the content? And that includes customizable games that, speak to the region that you are in, from names, colors, animations, that it's all sort of very specific and it speaks to, the local population. So from a marketing strategy point of view, I think we have to look at all of those channels and all of the sort of stakeholders and find out what works best, one, for the end user, but two, also in the end of the day, the operator needs to be profitable. So, how profitable is the game for the operator? And then to touch on what Nikita said, obviously, is, the ease of use, how quickly the game loads and, the lag and all of those things that some of the other games might experience. So it's definitely part of an entire ecosystem when looking at a strategy.
Nice. And this is something that touched me a lot, because we have many demands on influencer talent and let's say partnerships, sponsorships, right? Do you think that it's worth to get like one influencer, let's say macro influencer, to penetrate, to target all Africa, or is better, you think, to choose those micro influencers that are suited better on different countries? What do you think, Sergey?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm 100% sure that one influencer which can target the entire continent does not exist. So it's not true. Africa is culturally very different, and even linguistically is very different. So there are some influencers in the French-speaking Africa, there are influencers in the English-speaking Africa. Based on my market research experience, in each market, in every country, they have their own influencers, big influencers and micro-influencers. And they work very successfully. So sometimes they, like even in Nigeria, there are several influencers that serve as brand ambassadors, and they are doing very well. But what is the most difficult here is the right selection of an influencer. Many companies still do it very randomly. So it's basically based on the gut feel of the senior management. I like this person, let's work with him. So it's not always right, because you end up spending quite a lot of money but don't get anything in return. There are some scientific way of identifying the right influencers who can promote your brand and increase activation.
That's why our agencies like me, to help you to choose the right influencer here. That's my... Nikita, what do you think about this? Do you think, more or less the same question, but you think that it's better to choose, for example, if you are a global game developer, operator, you think it's better to choose for all the Africa one big influencer that it's known in the whole continent, or is better to choose strategically each influencer, micro influencer in every country?
I think this goes back to the first question that we had that you were answering, is that there is no single solution. I hope there was. That would have made all of our lives much easier. Unfortunately, that's not true. So yeah, you have to adapt to every country. You have to find the right influencers, you have to find the right affiliates, you have to find the right ways to push that traffic into your content, and that will completely depend on that country. And again, it's a trial and error. Nobody's perfect. You will find problems, financial ones, that you will be spending money and you will not get results, but in the end, through trial and error again, you will find that one solution of that one influencer within one country that will help, and then you just expand on that. There's never just one that will do all of it for you, so I think the more the better in this particular situation.
Mm-hmm. And Junaid, I pass you the ball to score. What do you think?
Yeah, you would go with Messi as an influencer, I might go with Ronaldo, but yeah, I think one thing, you've got brand ambassadors within the country that, are role models that can push your brand. And then from an influencer perspective, my experience is that on a campaign basis, it probably works better. So you run a specific campaign that targets that specific influencer's followers, and that might be completely different to another influencer. And, you know, if you do utilize these influencers on a campaign basis, you also just spread your reach and you reach a bigger demographic of potential punters.
No, amazing. Last question. If you want to ask some questions to some of you, if I miss something, what would you ask, Sergey?
What would be the future of the marketing in Africa? So is it any specific marketing channel or several channels? What would be in the next 5 years?
Sure, that's an interesting question. I think the first thing I would look at is we've got a younger audience in Africa. The penetration is obviously growing, internet connectivity, and I think that's all linked to how developed the nations become. And let's be honest, we sometimes have a very volatile continent, and government policies, and they spoke on regulation, could influence that. So if we get that stable and we know we've got a younger crowd and our internet connectivity is growing and the penetration gets bigger, it would definitely be sort of, in my view, your social media channels, your TikToks, your influencers that are moving within the region. And as we grow to a more matured, let's say, market, you probably move towards more traditional marketing methods.
I think that the next 5 years is too short of a period, in my opinion. I think we're going to see that maybe in 10 years. I believe the next 5 years are pretty much going to be staying more or less the same. But I think between 10 and 15-year period, that's when we're going to be seeing a bit of a bigger change. Once we see just economical development, that's the essence of it. The more advanced it is, the better it is for us.
Sergey, next 5 years, what do you think?
I agree with my co-panelists. I think it will be a huge growth of online, digital, social networks and everything. But I also agree with Nikita. It will not happen maybe not in the 5 years, but maybe in the longer time periods, 10, 15 years. For now, for the next 5 years, it has to be a combination of online and offline. That's my strong belief.
Okay, guys, I think time is over. So thank you so much for your thoughts, for sharing your knowledge here in this panel. I learned a lot from you guys. And feel free to add us on LinkedIn or speak to us here in this amazing show. So thank you so much.